All right, guys, I'm back with episode 39 of Let's Talk. So let's talk. Now, I don't remember exactly what episode of Let's Talk I mentioned this in, but I believe it was one of the streams where I mentioned my transition from iOS to Android, um, and then I brought up friends. And ever since that episode, whether it's still up, I don't know. It probably is, because if I make it more than 20 minutes, it stays up pretty much. So you guys are asking me, for advice on how to know if someone is your friend, and then if you know that, how to keep them. Now, in most cases, it's going to be a little different because again, it solely depends on their personality. Their the trust in you is the biggest thing. So it's like if I'm your friend and you don't trust me, would I consider you to sorry, would I consider me to be your friend? I don't know. If I know that you don't trust me, I maybe would not consider me your friend. Um, I don't know. It kind of depends again, and also how you think of it. But personally, if I can't trust you, I don't personally see you as being a friend. Maybe somebody I could hang out with, but not. I don't want to make it sound like it's a relationship, but nothing more than just hanging out. Whereas a friend, you can hang out, they can come over, you can go over their house or whatever, which you can do with a buddy too, right? But I'm just saying, in the general sense, finding a true friend is it's much harder now than it was 10, 15 years ago. And like, I'm 18, right? So when I was 15 years ago, I would have been 3. Now, come into like when I was in kindergarten, um, I believe you're what, 5, 6? I can't remember for the life of me. Kind of sad. But it's a little different because you're not going to go and start bitching back at somebody because of shit. You're not going to say you're an asshole if you're in kid. Well, I hope not. Maybe nowadays his parents swear a lot more, but I don't know. It's just different. Definitely different. But in reality, I would see if I had to go back to elementary, like the junior years of elementary, like being a little kid again, trying to make friends, I would have definitely tried a lot harder. Like again, when I was in elementary, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was pretty much a loner. Yeah, I had friends, but they weren't friends. Again, this is where I say buddy or friend. A buddy again is the one that it's not necessarily you can't trust them, but it apply the same rules apply. If you can't trust them, then they're not your friend where you can just go and say whatever. You can open up to them. A friend will be there for you and you will be there for them no matter what, basically, almost no matter what. Obviously there's boundaries, or there's you know it's gonna be like that to an extent. But in all reality, like when I was growing up, making friends again because I have ADHD. Any like even autistic kids, I have a friend who's autistic that I know for a fact. Like if you guys look up the just even having a borderline diagnosis of autism is it's different. You're treated totally differently when someone knows that you're autistic or you have some sort of mental disability. Or now they try and somehow sugarcoat it and say a mental difference or a mental, I don't want to say delay, because delay you would say that if like let's say maybe they don't know what delay means, so then you would use delay if you want to be like that. But personally, I find that to be a little bit offensive and rude. Offensive because again, I know they don't know what that means, so that I'm going to use that to my advantage. Turn out many different ways. But personally, though, growing up, making friends was not the easiest thing. One, it was a lack of self confidence and actually wanting to make the friends, because I never thought that I would be ever be able to have a friend because I was like a loser. I was like thinking the worst of myself when I was in elementary. I never really had initiative or took initiative or whatnot to actually make the move to make a friend or even somebody to hang out with after school. Like again, now I'm starting to talk about like grade 5 to 7. That's where you start to maybe go to their house and hang out. Grade 4, you're still a little kid, right? And I would say by the time I was 10, maybe 12, I'll keep it at 10. But from 10 to 12 years old, I really did not succeed, to be honest with you, in making a lot of friends. Now, nothing's changed. Now, I'm going to get to that in a bit because I want to explain to you why it hasn't changed. In a physical sense, it has, but in reality, I don't think it's really going to change very much. But growing up, generally making friends for me was nothing super easy. That's why I'm bringing up the disability. Regardless which one you have, if you have a disability, period, you are treated differently. Now, it's very, very sad. Now, again, once you hit high school, I'll talk about that in a little bit in this video. It's a lot different. You know, at that point, most of the kids are mature enough to just say, you know what, just never mind. I'm not going to bother wasting my energy and breath to make fun of this kid. Because even though, you know, he may look kind of weird and dorky, nerdy, and geeky, and, you know, odd, different, most of all, I'm not really going to waste my time just making fun of this kid because that gets me nowhere. That's how I think. And I'm going to be honest with you and straightforward. I used to bully a kid. And ironically enough, this kid turned out to be my best friend. And it's actually very, very funny because when we talked about it, again, we haven't talked to him in a few months. It's not, you know, personal things. Um, when we ever do bring it up and talk about it, nothing hours and hours. But you know, when we just happen to start bringing it up and talking about it, I think, you know, and I was thinking I would kick myself in the ass if I could go back in time to see myself making fun of this kid because of the fact that he's he has ADD, attention deficit disorder, and I believe some form of autism. I don't know for sure. Now I know that it's, I believe, a genetic thing on his father's. I'm not sure. I believe his older brother. I used to go to school with him and his older brother. His older brother graduated when I think we were in grade 5. Ever since like grade 3, I think, or not even grade 3, grade 4. I would say maybe grade 4 or 5. We started to really actually hang out in recess. Guys, if you hit high school, if you're going to be graduating come this upcoming school year, semester's almost over for high school, but you know, if you're going to be graduating school at the end of this school year and going into high school, let me tell you right off the bat, guys, if they say it's really, really, really hard, like seriously, watch out. Because again, my mom said, yeah, it's going to be absolutely hard. There's not going to be any help. Which really, when you look at it in the long run, there isn't any help physically. But bearing in mind that there is a bit of assistance if you need it, it's there. So making friends is the one main thing I'm going to bring up. I'm going to bring up me growing up and progressing through school is the general topic of this video because I think that's going to be more of the outbringing title or outbringing topic throughout the stream. Now, me growing up in general, I was never a very social kid. I was very shy, which is common throughout kids who have ADD, ADHD, and or autism. Now, it is, I believe, possible to have multiple mental disabilities if you're autistic. If you have Down syndrome, I know it's more or less, Down syndrome and autism are very, very similar. Now, like autism and just about every other mental disability, I'm not talking about physical. Like if I'm in a wheelchair, but everything else mentally is stable. I'm not trying to sound stupid or offensive because again, I would offend myself thinking about it. But if I have no mental disabilities and, you know, I'll even consider it legally, if I'm not considered legally, if I don't have any legally considered mental disabilities, like I'm talking about they diagnose me legally that I have maybe autism, for instance. I don't, but I'm just saying as an example. Let me just move this webcam here. And, you know, it's a totally different story, guys, depending on where you live. Like, again, I grew up the first few years of my life in Toronto. Moved to Vaughan, Woodbridge, guys. It is a beautiful, beautiful city, guys. Absolutely, the prices are extremely, extremely different. Not going to say if they're expensive or not, because you guys will have to find it on your own. But despite the pricing, guys, if you ever get a chance to go and go up to Woodbridge, Vaughan. Guys, it is a beautiful, beautiful town, city/town. Um, York region in general has a lot to offer as far as, not I wouldn't say touring goes, but it's not like, you're gonna be going to like fucking Tokyo, but still, you got a totally different life when you go just like I remember when I grew up, I had to pass Steeles, like Steeles and Islington. And once you pass Steeles and Islington and you go down past Steeles on Islington, guys, that is where you hit the entrance of Vaughan on what then would have been the one way that I had to come into Vaughan. I ended up again moving into Vaughan, living on in Woodbridge, and getting to meet a couple kids. I moved like, many times within the local community. Um, Mainly because again, growing up, I could never afford to be. I was never financially stable when I was growing up, as a little kid, to be able to stay in one house and rent. I rented pretty much my whole life. Not me, but my mom. Not having a stable financial setting, not settle. What am I saying? Um, it gets a little harder, but we're not going to talk about that. That's more of a personal thing. But regardless, moving back and forth, that was one of the things that I got made fun of. I was poor. I was broke. That I absolutely never really. I was too young. When I was younger, I didn't understand what they were saying. So it's like, in a way, I think I don't want to say stupid, but what you would describe as someone being stupid, like I completely missed every like red flag that was thrown out there when it came to being made fun of. I didn't understand exactly what they were talking about. It did not mentally, I guess, compute, or so to say. I don't know. Like I didn't understand it mentally, or at least not enough to comprehend that they were making fun of me. I didn't understand that they were saying poor as an insult. I didn't understand enough to mentally, you know, settle and say, okay, so they're making fun of me, so I can either cry or whatever. Whereas the next kid would have maybe cried, or whatever. I didn't understand that, so I didn't cry. What I did cry about when I was younger, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be open with you guys because that's the topic of the video. Not being open, but growing up, is I used to cry a lot because I never had a father figure. My mom and my dad got divorced. I would believe I was 3 years old. So you guys can tell. Anybody who has divorced parents and the parents got divorced when they were like a child or baby, it's a lot different. Like, not saying it's easier by any means. It's not easier or harder. It's just a much different experience when you have parents that got divorced when you were a child or an infant or a toddler, whatever you want to say, a baby. And as opposed to like if my parents got divorced now, that I'm a little older, I'm more understanding of what the what's going on. Then you really don't know half of what's going on because you're just learning things, right? Like literally, you're just learning how to walk, you're learning this, and learning little things. So to get the mind to understand that, okay, mom and dad are splitting up, literally, so to say, not literally, but you know what I mean. Like they're separating their marital bonds, so to say. Whether my mom and my dad were happy together, I honestly will never know 100%. But when you get divorced, 9%, 90% of the time, it's because you are not 100% happy with each other. It's nothing maybe a personal thing, but it maybe just won't work out. Whatever. That's why people get divorced. Now, in a religious aspect, I'm not going to get into it, but I don't know. I'm not even going to bother touching up on that because then I'll get into a totally different ball field. But again, growing up, we're going to just now start sticking to when I was 10, 12. I believe I was in grade 4 or 5 when I started seriously like hanging out with this kid. I'd hung out with this one Indian kid, guys, I had met in grade 2. I hung out with him, I believe, until grade 10. Not, you know, like continuously, but like he had came from my high school. We went to the same high school since grade 10. And then grade 11, I believe it was, he transferred or whatever. And I'm not gonna say he's a bad kid personally, but his intentions were more on the people he hung out with, which then hence friends. That's who he, I guess, considered friends. Whether he considered me a friend or not, I really don't know. I'm not going to let it bother me. I couldn't care less. So, we started just not hanging out anymore. Not that we really hung out, but, the few times that he would skip and greet nine guys, him and his friends were the ones I would hang out with. I ended up, getting to know his friends. We hung out, whatever. And it just stopped. When he got transferred, it stopped. Nothing, ever. Whether it can be started again, I don't know. Not sound gay, but you know what I mean. So the concept for me of making friends now, I understand how important it is to at least have the one friend you can go to. Again, this one friend, he's my best friend. We've been friends since elementary, since little kids. We were little kids, but I don't want to sound spiteful, but I don't want to sound like negative. I'm saying this with kindness. In a way, he can't necessarily be a friend in terms of I can go to him, yeah, and open up, whether he can understand, which I'm not doubting by any means, guys. If you know him personally, you would know, like, he's not the one to openly socialize. He was like me when I was like really, really young, but my age. So it's continued. And he's been like that since I first met him. That was one of the things I used to make fun of. He never had friends. He was a loser, a loner. Because his voice was like more deep than the average kid of his age. Still, um, longer vocal cords, very like no homo, but a manly voice. He has a fairly deep voice. And I personally, I don't have a deep voice, but I'm just saying. So it's like growing up, kids used to make fun of him because of his voice. Kids used to make fun of him because he used to pull his hair. Now, I'm not going to make it sound like he was absolutely hopeless to say because he absolutely did not understand. I don't know. I do not want to sound like the, I don't know, that person that I'm interviewing on TV that says that their child does not understand the difference between good and bad. That I'm just going to bring up a really stupid, random ass example. A child murderer, for instance. Let's say I'm like 6 years old, 7 years old, and I just managed to murder somebody. And at that age, I don't know if you would necessarily have remorse, because I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say it's because you don't understand what it is, because emotions don't just like mentally initialize once we learn what they are. They are there regardless. Like before, if let's say I was never beat, just as an example. I'm bringing up odd examples, but it's just for the purposes, the sake of this stream and this video. If let's say this year, let's say this year is my first year of life. I'm 1 year old, and as I'm growing, I'm learning new things, and now I'm starting to learn, and understand that I can do this and I can't do that. I don't understand the difference yet, right? Because I'm a toddler, so I'm not really I don't understand. So, as discipline, my parents would, for example, my mom never beat me. I'm just saying as an example. Don't get the wrong impression, guys. For instance, my mom would, let's say, for instance, I don't know, as discipline, maybe she would have hit me. Would it be that maybe then, once she hit me, I understood that that was pain, and then from then on, I knew that pain existed? No, you don't mentally ever say as a child or a baby, okay, I know what pain is. I have never felt it. It's kind of like me saying I know what driving is, but I've never driven. Yeah, it's not necessarily the same thing, but it's right now the only example I can think of. But to have someone say that pain does not exist within one's self until pain is brought upon them is absolutely bogus. Because if I have to say that to everybody, the next person who is a victim of, I don't know, something absolutely horrid, rape, any physical assault or any physical negativity upon themselves or upon themselves by someone else, would then say to me that I knew at some point it could happen. I didn't necessarily mentally acknowledge, again, being 1 year old, that, oh, hey, my mom, there is a possibility that I can be hit. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it's like, if I don't know what pain is, does that mean that I won't feel it? Or, I don't know how to explain it. Hopefully you guys get what I'm trying to get at. So, I got totally off topic, but just, I don't even remember why I was talking about pain. Weird. But, so, back on topic, once again. Being that, again, growing up, being now that I'm 18, right? 6, 7 years ago, I was, what, 9, 10 years old? Sorry, 11, 12 years old. I would have, maybe then, again, I was in grade 7. I maybe would have then, because in grade 8, that's actually at the peak when I started to really actually make friends. I started to socialize a little bit. Before that, though, I was an antisocial monster. Like, I had absolutely no intentions to be social with anybody. I did not take initiative to be socializing, and me did not bond, so to say. So I was, in that sense, very, very antisocial in most cases. I would actually, I'm not going to lie to you guys, in every meaning of the word antisocial, I would, if anything, try to avoid socializing with others because I was worried that, for the same reasons that I'm nervous to socialize now, that because I have a disability, obviously I know at some point in my life, socializing with someone and at the same time knowing you have a disability, the disability factor will start to kick in pretty broadly because of the fact that the mentality, the way my brain works is obviously going to be a little bit different from the way that your brain works if you don't have a mental disability. Again, regardless what it is, even if you do and you have a different one, the way the brain works mentally is different. So the way that I interpret someone socializing to me, I'm going to even bring up talking to a girl, for instance. I don't know. If I didn't understand the difference between being nice and, I wouldn't necessarily say flirting, but socializing and a little bit more, I don't want to say intimate, but and a little bit more of a relationship kind of way. I don't know how to say. Like, I guess in a little more of an intimate way. I don't know if that's a proper word to use, but the thing that sets the boundaries from socializing as a friend and then taking it a notch more to where you're a little bit more than a friend. If I didn't understand the difference between that and I see a girl as being really nice, or I see that every girl I talk to or whatever is really nice, then, I would assume, okay, shit, I'm a womanizer, or, like, I don't know. Because I would understand that, okay, this girl and that girl have been nice to me, but that's just their personal complexion, the way that they want me to, their impression on them. So it's not necessarily that they're, I don't want to say hitting on me, but it's not that they quote unquote like me. They're just being friendly. Whereas I understand the difference between, like the next kid, again, growing up, when I would get made fun of, I'm bringing this up because, again, like I mentioned earlier, I did not understand what it was that they were saying, and I didn't understand that that was an insult, so it wouldn't bother me. It didn't hurt my feelings because I did not understand that they were making fun of me. So nonetheless, I didn't understand why they were saying that about me to make fun of me. I didn't understand what the significance of that was, that they had to say that in order to make fun of me. So I didn't understand that I was poor at the time, right? I thought everybody, like literally every family, I knew that a proper family, I'm just going to say like in a non-realistic sense, but the stereotypical proper family, the perfect family, generally consists of a mother, a father, one or two kids, and the whole family socializing and being um, connected as a family, united. They're not like where, let's say, me and my mom don't talk, and let's say, for example, me and my mom are the only members of, let's say, like my family. My mom is the only member of my family, for instance. If we don't talk, my family has absolutely no bond within the relationship. So that doesn't work out. Whereas stereotypical perfect family has an absolutely phenomenal relationship between all members of the family, regardless of where, what, who, when, or why, whatever. So I understood this that way. It was the normal thing. That not having a lot of money, everybody, I didn't understand that not having a lot of money was being poor, because I figured, okay, so the way my mother struggled, everybody else struggled. Everybody else thought more or less, not thought the way they did, but every problem that I had growing up, I thought that most kids my age had the same problem. I thought that most kids my age, their mother, even if not single, had the exact same stress. I thought, like, you guys hopefully get the point. So I did not think or understand or acknowledge that it was just, me and the way I was growing up. Not that I was growing up in a supremely bad way, but just saying. So making friends, again, now is factoring in that mentally, I am assuming, not knowing better, that everybody thinks it more or less the same way to an extent. So that being said, I would think that once I understood and realized, that okay, now I'm supposed to be social. I'm supposed to start, trying to make friends and hanging out with different people and trying to see how things work. So sorry, guys. So once I really started to understand that, and I mentally acknowledged that I'm supposed to make friends, which again, really I started socializing at the age of 12, like with anybody. Now I can socialize with just someone, I can just like randomly, like they say, "Oh, do you know what time the bus is coming?" And from there we start talking about like, "Oh, I think the bus should be here in like 20 minutes," and they say, "Oh, wow," and I'm like, "Yeah, I wait for the bus a fairly long time. I believe it, yada yada yada." You start to converse with each other. So I can do that now. 7 or 8 years ago, I could not do that. And that was because of my lack of self confidence, my lack of initiative that was taken. I did not take any initiative whatsoever to do my schoolwork or to even be social outside of school. I'm talking about. Now, once I hit grade 7 and 8, this is where I started to transfer. Once I finished grade 6, I went to a special school, and I'm not saying special because it's someone for special needs kids. It was for kids, not only with special needs, but not super like they have Down syndrome, but to the point where they can focus. Like mentally, it's not that they're gonna grow up in a mental home. I don't know exactly what to say. Like where the if you have mental disability and you're not able to take care of yourself, you're put in some sort of, I believe it's an institution, if that's maybe the right word. Um, you're put under some sort of care. Just to say in a nutshell. So I was put into school, and it was a very, very small class. Throughout most of school, only maybe the last 2 years, I was put in a very, very, very reduced class. Like to 10 to 12 kids, maybe 15. Half or less the size of a regular classroom, quantity of kids. So I still, again, I've been taking medication, guys, since I can remember. I was in elementary when I started taking medication for my ADHD. Now, then I really had absolutely jack shit of a care to give when it came to actually my academic side of life. Now I'm starting to really push my ass above and beyond in everything because I want to do better for myself. I did not understand really. I thought, I took advantage of everybody until now, so it'll always be this way. Nope. I took advantage of people too much, got too used to it, and it's crazy. So I never understood that. People help you, but to a point. They're not going to just always going to be there for you. Regardless of whether or not you ask, they're going to say, "Oh, you need help." At some point, you're going to have to take this thing called initiative, which I've brought up several times throughout the stream or video, and I'm going to have to take initiative in order to raise my hand and be like, "Sir, Miss, um, I don't, for instance, maybe I don't understand this math question. I don't know, what's the difference between positive and negative numbers, for instance? I don't know. It's fairly basic, but let's use that as a really broad example. And if I don't take initiative to raise my hand now, if I'm lucky, most teachers will, but let's just say you're in the odd, world where they don't. Teacher's not going to come up to you and say, "Oh, you need help? You need help? Do you need help? Oh, yes, sir. Yes, miss. I don't know the difference between negative and positive numbers. Can you help me with this?" "Oh, sure, Marco." They're not going to do that because once you hit high school, especially, I haven't gotten to that generally yet, but once you hit high school, that changes. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So once I transferred to the school, like I was mentioning, this school is for kids that have major, major aggression issues. Like to the point where guys, I would come to school daily. Sometimes police were involved because the kids would get like extremely physical with teachers. They would bite, kick, spit, punch. I think I already said kick, but kick, you know. And shit, you guys can hear my dog. So they would actually literally, guys, have a thing called a cubicle. Now it's not a cubicle like you're sitting in like mass corporation, cubicles galore. It was one hard plastic room. It was like a box. They put you in there, and it was literally, guys, like practically indestructible unless you burn it or whatever. Like hard plastic. If you could fart, nobody would hear you. You could scream, shout, kick, spit, but you can do whatever the hell you want within those four walls. You can't get out unless someone opens the door on the outside. Now, legally, that was actually permitted because of the fact that most of the kids that were in that school, that program was within the school. I'm not going to name the schools that I've gone to, just personal reasons as well as privacy reasons. But it got pretty fucked up. I'm not going to lie to you guys. There were several occasions, and again, I've always, always, always since then been intimidated by everybody. To the point where I'm not going to lie to you, I yell, I talk back to my mom. I'm a complete asshole towards my mom. I'll admit that. I will never, ever, but to a point, obviously, I got my breaking point too, but it's very hard for me to yell back at someone that's not my mom for some reason. You would think it'd be the other way around, but for some reason I just can't. It's unfortunate. And that's not necessarily something I can't control, and I don't have necessarily an easy time doing it, but it is controllable. Obviously, I'm not locked up in some institution, but I went through this one stage. Like you guys probably know me from the YouTube reason I'm Gangsta 139 100. That I went through that whole huge ass phase from wanting to be a gangster. I thought being a gangster was a shit, was cool, was hip, was the thing to be. Then growing up, maturing, realizing how stupid I really was, I changed. I now start dressing a little more mature, or mature period. But yeah, at the odd time, I want to wear track pants. I personally avoid track pants because I don't want to get it back into that mentality, lifestyle of thinking I'm a gangster. That you give me a gun, I'll blast anybody's brains out. I couldn't give a shit less, no remorse, nothing, no cares given. I just walk away. Whether or not I could do that, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know for sure. Don't want to find out. So again, I went to this school and it not I want to say I don't want to say traumatized me, but I know personally that when I talk back to my mom, the fact that like I know the next mother would probably beat the shit out of me if I did that to them. For how badly my attitude problem is, I probably would have been either like slaughtered by now. Like the worst thing imaginable for how bad I am. Not that I will never, ever, ever. The one promise I made to my grandmother, guys, one promise I made before she died 4 years ago. I will never, ever, ever lay a finger on a woman unless it's self-defense. But you guys get my point. I truly and honestly and per, in the most immense way possible that you guys can imagine, I truly believe that it is the absolute most worst thing is to lay a finger on a woman in a negative manner. To hit or hurt, whether mentally or physically, a woman, I think, is not a true portrayal of what a man or a guy should be. I think a man should open the door for a woman. I think a man should respect a woman's decisions. I think I'm not going to get into that because it's absolutely irrelevant to this topic. But you know, I didn't go throughout my way in high school and elementary. Sorry, thinking that I got to open the door for my teachers. I got to open the door for all the girls. I got to. No, I'm not saying fuck me. I got to go and make sure that I pull the chairs back for all the girls in the class so they can see, and then push their chairs in while they see it. No, I'm not the Pope. I'm not Jesus. I'm a good Samaritan. Yes, I hold the door for one person, and 16 other people walk in, and I'm stuck at the end of the damn day. I finally leave because 5 hours later, people stop for walking through the damn door that I'm holding for them for the one person. That 16 more people come in. That's just me personally being a good Samaritan. That's out of the goodness of my heart. And growing up, having a disability, I think my grandmother and my mom, like my grandparents and my mom, were the only three people. I'm not saying the rest of my family, my aunts and uncles and cousins. Okay, I'm not considering my cousins, but my aunts and uncles and the rest of my family, other than my grandparents and my mom. Dad was never there. Um, I'm not going to say that the rest of my family, other than those three people, were not there for me at all. It's just those are the three people that were there for me the most. Obviously, I would hope my mom would, but she was, and my grandparents. My grandfather is the one that's still alive. Um, my grandmother, as I mentioned earlier, passed away 4 years ago. Rest in peace. Sorry. Um, and I take it very, 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 very personal when someone talks badly about my mom or my grandmother or the rest of my family. About me personally, I don't take it personally anymore. Got over it. Uh, excuse me. Like, logically, guys, it's just a matter of making friends. It's totally, totally different now. Now I'm going to get into, finishing off elementary and now going into graduating high school. Well, sorry, elementary into high school. Um, Once I started socializing, again, on and off, because I had transitioned from school to school at this point in the last few years of elementary, I had to continuously make new friends. Fine. In fact, my best friend, the one with the disability, I met after, I think, 3, 4 years of not seeing him at all. went to the same school that we went to together, same class and everything in grade 8. Graduated together. Wonderful, wonderful time. Um, what else? Anyways, yeah, so at this point I've graduated in elementary and now I'm in high school. We went to high school together, as I mentioned. Last maybe once, so I haven't talked to him, but whatever. Since then, we've been going to school together. Um, I walked to the bus stop with him, we talked on the way to the bus stop. Um, Crazy me, you know, buddies. And, with other than him, making friends, because I have people that I talk to, hang out with. I wouldn't necessarily say they're not my friends, but when I look at it in my idea of what a friend is, that one that you can go to at any time and they'll accept you. I'm not saying that a true friend will never ever get mad at you because it's not going to happen that way. Um, it just won't. But it's hard. Excuse me. It's hard to know and be sure that that one person. It's kind of like again being in a relationship. It's hard to know off the bat if that person is your friend based off of the first few times you guys hang out. Excuse me. First few times you guys hang out. And again, the true test is again no phones, nothing. Will they still be there for you? I don't know. Um, Sorry, guys. Tighten my damn pants too much. Trying to tie a knot in my damn shorts and I accidentally tightened it too tight. Okay, that did not work out good. Anyways, that's what I was saying because you guys don't want to hear me talk about tying a knot in my damn shorts. Maybe you do. I don't know. Let me know. Anyways, back to reality. So I'm still gonna be honest with you guys. I'm still considering myself to be a loner because I have no friends really, other than the one kid. But I'm saying friends is again someone I can go to when I need them. I can talk about girls, whatever. You know, I can go to them. I can call them up. I can, whatever. Talk about whatever. I personally would be the one that you can do that. You know, I would be my true definition of a friend. I would be there for you when you need to talk. But it's crazy. Anyways, guys, I am going to wrap this up. I will finish this off on episode 40 just because I'm getting a little tired. Lord Almighty, it is absolutely late as shit. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Rate, subscribe, and comment. Thumbs up, like, and share. And if you guys want to see more of these personal video streams, let me know down below in the comment section or on Twitter. Hashtag personality streams. Or any, I don't know, whatever you guys can come up with. Tweet it at me. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Rate, subscribe, and comment. Thumbs up, like, and share.